my name is Sophie and welcome back to another weekly reading vlog. I really should have thought about what I was going to say before I started recording. Hello, it's Monday. It's really grey and miserable outside and I do kind of have lots of things on my list for today, but the main thing is that my husband is coming home from a week of being away with work for a week, and I'm very excited to see him. So I'm just waiting on him to tell me that he's going to be getting on a train soon, and then my plan is to go to the gym while he's on the train, then go pick him up from the train station, then we're going to go food shopping, and then we're going to come home and just spend some time together, and I'm really looking forward to it. But the things I need to do before that were filming all of my TikToks for the week. I find bulk filming is so much easier than sitting down to film every day. So I have just filmed 6 TikToks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 different TikToks. Now I need to go and edit the one for today and ideally edit a weekly reading vlog as well. But I have over an hour of content, so I don't think I'm going to get through that before my husband is finished with work. But making a start is better than not doing anything. I think that's everything on my list for today. I'm going to go crack on with some editing. No, I'm not. I'm going to tell you about books first because this is meant to be a reading vlog. If you watched last week's vlog, you'll know that I put myself on a little challenge to try and finish my definitely not March, my May TBR in the last 5 days of the month. I wasn't successful, but I did read more than if I had not tried at all. But doing that challenge meant that I was finished with reading a book from my May TBR, not the last one, but a book from my May TBR on June 1st, which meant I could start my June TBR on June 1st, which is something I don't think I've ever done before. So I'm currently reading A Sense of Freedom by Jimmy Boyle. This is a book, well actually, this is my book club pick for the month, and the premise of my book club, if you're not familiar, is that when my husband and I got married, we asked our guests to gift us a copy of their favourite book so that we would have a library of our favourite people's favourite books, and in an endeavour to read them all, we take it in turns each month to choose a book from the wedding library, and I read it and he doesn't. This book came from my uncle, and my family are a bit Scottish. We don't sound Scottish and we've never lived in Scotland, and I think that's the best way to describe it, but my uncle has the heart of a Scotsman. This book actually is his original copy. This book itself was originally published in 1977 and this edition was published in 1982. So this book is 40 plus years old and it's still very robust, to be fair, but it's got like those weathered pages and it smells like an old book. And honestly, so far I'm really enjoying it, bearing in mind I don't read a lot of non-fiction, and I definitely don't read non-fiction about some of Scotland's most wanted criminals. The writing style I'm finding is very accessible and I can find myself rooting for this guy even though he's literally Scotland's most wanted criminal, which I don't know what that says about me. Either way, what my uncle wrote about this in the beginning of the book is that this is a true story about the most wanted criminal in Scotland who eventually turned his life around. And so far I am actually really enjoying it. I'm only 40 pages in, which I think is about 14%. It's quite dense, there's quite a lot of words per page, but yeah, I'm having a good time. It's really small and I don't know why I find that very satisfying to read, but that is what I'm currently reading. I don't have an audiobook on the go at the moment, and I was going to start something from my Audible collection tonight because I don't have anything on Audible that is on my June TBR. When I get my credit at the end of the month, I will probably use it on either something from my June TBR if I haven't finished reading them all yet, or something from my July TBR. So I'm going back to Spotify and I'm going to start listening to Guild by Raven Kennedy because I am on a TBR mission and I want to read as much of my TBR as fast as possible so that I can get back to some of my leftover TBR and my backlog TBR. So I'm on a mission. I'm going to start listening to Guild by Raven Kennedy on Spotify on my way to my dance class tonight. I've got about an hour of driving, so about an hour of listening time, and I normally listen at like 1.5 speed, so I can listen to more than an hour. But this book is 386 pages long. The font is quite big, which is nice. But yeah, I'm going to start listening to that tonight, but I haven't yet. So currently the only book I'm reading is this one. This is what I'm going to be reading by the end of the day. Either way, that's everything that's going on today. I'm going to go do some editing. I may or may not update this later. Hi. It's been a week since I filmed that last clip, and I don't know if it was because I had such a heavy vlogging week the week before, and by heavy vlogging week I mean I actually remembered to vlog for a whole week. I still haven't edited that video yet, but I have over 3 hours of raw footage, so I really did well with last week's vlog. So I don't know if I had like vlog fatigue and I need to find a middle ground, or if I just had a busy week and there was a lot going on. I just watched that first clip back and I said that my plan for the day was basically just to wait for my husband to come home, and I was planning what I was doing with my day around that, but he didn't end up getting home until like 6 p.m, so it was much later in the day than we had originally anticipated. So that kind of threw my day off a bit because I was kind of in waiting mode. And then the rest of the week was just manic busy. He had a couple more work days, we had one full day at home together, and then he has now flown to Germany to go work on the Euros football tournament, and he's gone for the next 2.5 weeks. So I think part of me was probably subconsciously anxious about that. Like in my conscious brain I'm like, it's fine, he goes away all the time, I'm actually looking forward to having some time to myself, I've got some nice plans, I'm going to spend a couple of weekends with my mum, I've got lots of dance stuff going on, like I've got loads going on and I'm not worried about being on my own. But I think part of the really codependent part of my brain was worried about being without him and not having him for so long. And I think part of me is like, God, I'm so codependent, I'm so like, what, why am I like this? But then the other part of me thinks couples who have slightly more normal jobs than he does, like, you know, the standard 9 to 5, the more office-based regular jobs, they get to spend every single night of their lives together. They get to share a bed every single night. And if one of them goes away, it's even more of a big deal because it happens so infrequently. So the fact that I'm so used to him being away, like we call him a part-time resident of this house because that's his job. He has to go away a lot. I think for most people it would be like being in an office or being at their usual workplace would be the norm, and then going away would be a special occasion. But for him, going away is the norm, and being in their office space, HQ, whatever you want to call it, is not a special occasion but a slightly less frequent occasion for him. So he's got a bit of a weird routine in that respect. But yeah, I think I was subconsciously nervous about it, even though I wasn't consciously nervous about it, which is frustrating because when I'm subconsciously anxious is when I get all the symptoms and the worst parts of anxiety without actually feeling consciously anxious. So I've not been feeling great for the last week, and it's really frustrating because I'm doing all the right things in my conscious mind, but my subconscious mind seems to be in control of my body. Quick rundown of everything that happened last week. On Tuesday, Lucas went into base for work, but then it turned out that he'd been crewed when he didn't need to be crewed, and the truck that he was meant to be working on wasn't there, so he came home earlier than anticipated. And then we went over to Reading for the evening to go out for dinner with our friends, which was really nice. Then on Wednesday he was in base for the day. He took the car, I think he took the car, because on the days he takes the car I can't leave the house. Well, I can leave the house, but I can't really go anywhere unless I get a bus, which if I don't need to do, I won't. So yeah, I had a homey day on Wednesday, and then I had my usual ballet classes in the evening. Then on Thursday, like I said, it was the one day we had together, so we just, I don't even know what we did. We had a really nice slow morning just together. We went, and he needed to get some stuff for his trip to Germany, so we went and did a little shop, and then we played a lot of Stardew Valley. We ordered Domino's and we played some more Stardew Valley, and it was lovely. It was really nice to just spend some proper quality time with him doing something together rather than doing separate things sat on opposite ends of the same sofa. So that was really nice. And then on Friday his flight wasn't till the evening, so we went down to see some of his family before he left. So we went and saw the in-laws. Then I drove him to Heathrow and dropped him off. And then I went to a friend's birthday party, and I was a bit anxious about it because it was lots of people I didn't know. There was a huge chance that there wasn't going to be anyone there that I knew. Luckily one of my other friends popped in for a little bit, but it ended up being really nice. Everyone was super friendly. I surprised myself by being surprisingly sociable, and then I ended up staying till 1 AM, which meant I didn't get home until 2 AM and I didn't get to sleep until 3 AM, and I'm still recovering from that. I've been bone dead exhausted for the last few days, just trying to recover from all of that. I did then have to get up on Saturday morning to go to another dance class to shadow, to make notes. It was a baby ballet class, so it was kids that I reckon they were all under 3. None of them were quite speaking properly, but they could all walk. I'm getting better at aging kids now, but yeah, it was really nice. I just sat and made some notes on what that class consisted of. It was only a 45-minute class, so I actually spent longer getting to and from the studio than I did at the studio, but that was fine. When I got back, I only had like an hour and a half of the audiobook for Guild left. I have it to hand. Look, here's a book. I've been listening to that audiobook all week and I only had a little bit left, so I made myself some lunch and I sat down and co-read the last 60-70 odd pages. Not even that, whatever. I listened to the rest of the audiobook and I finished that on Saturday, and then I've been slowly making my way through A Sense of Freedom. Like I mentioned, it's very dense. Like, it's not difficult to read. It's one of those things with non-fiction that you get a kind of historical sense of the writing style. Like I said, it was published in 1977, so this is a guy who was brought up like during the war. I don't even know. I don't know the timeline of it. Yeah, you get a real sense of the way he talks, and it's interesting to see how that would differ from someone who's writing an autobiography now. I am really enjoying it, but it's just taking me ages to go through, and I think most of it, it's not even that the writing is dense in terms of the writing style, it's dense in terms of the formatting, in that there's a lot of words on each page. The margins are really small, and while the font size is reasonable, there's just literally a lot of words on the page. So I'm still only like 20% of the way through it, but I am slowly getting through it and I am enjoying it, but it's just going to be a bit of a slower read for sure. I'm going to try and binge a little bit more of that this week, but honestly we'll see. So yeah, that's what I did on Saturday, and then the true exhaustion of being out and not getting to sleep until 3 AM really set in. So for the rest of Saturday and Sunday I did not get a lot done. There was a lot of napping, there was a lot of, you know when you don't quite have a headache but you are just tired and all you want to do is rot. That's what I wanted and needed from the weekend, so that's what I let myself do. I didn't edit the videos that I was meant to edit. I just about kept on top of my daily tasks. It was a slow weekend, but a slow weekend that was much needed. So the only book I finished last week was Guild by Raven Kennedy. I rated this 3 stars. I didn't really know what the plot was or where the plot was going, and it suffers from something that really irks me in books when you're clearly setting up for a series, so an individual book doesn't have its own plot line. There was no resolution or conclusion to this book. Like, it ended on a cliffhanger, but arguably I wouldn't call it a cliffhanger. For me, a cliffhanger is when you round off one story and then you have a little tendril of something that's just going to tide you over to the next one. But this one didn't have an ending. It's clearly setting up for a bigger series, but the whole book felt like a beginning, and it didn't feel like anything was resolved. It didn't feel like anything was concluded. It was all just a big setup. And the other thing that confused me was the narrative style. I think the protagonist is meant to be in her mid to late 20s. She said something about how Midas found her when she was 15 and she's been with him for 10 years, which implies she's at least 25. She's definitely of consenting age. There is a lot of sexual themes in this book. It's Greek. The Greeks were horny, like, fine. I'm kind of getting used to that the more books I read, but this one had a lot of sexual tones. The whole point is that there's like this collection of women who are just women that are owned by the king for sex purposes. They're called saddles. which is, I thought was perhaps like an actual Greek terminology, but I tried to look it up and it seems like it's something that Raven Kennedy has invented. And from the other reviews I read, people didn't really like the term saddles, because it's literally, I see why it's an appropriate name, and by appropriate I mean it makes sense, but to literally like give these women the title of something to ride just feels a little bit on the nose. But it does feel like the fact that I genuinely thought it was a Greek piece of terminology that had been used within this story, kind of, maybe it was the right word, but a lot of people didn't seem to like it. I think I got a bit lost with what I was saying, and then my doorbell rang because I've got a parcel, but I'll save that to open in next week's. The narrative style confused me because whilst this main character, Aaron, was definitely of age, perhaps 25, she read very much like a YA character. I genuinely thought this was a YA series going into it, and also while I was listening to it, and then when you think about the themes and everything that's going on, it's definitely not. It's definitely an adult book, but it just sounds and feels very much like a YA book. And I wrote this in my review on Storygraph. I don't know if that was a deliberate choice to give that real emphatic sense that Aaron is really naive and almost underdeveloped as a human because she's been kept in this cage for so long, or if it was just a bit of a disjointed writing style. Personally, I do not think it was intentional, but I do feel like I was sucked into the story enough to want to read the rest of the books, but I'm not going to prioritise it. I'm not going to run out and buy them all immediately. I'm definitely not going to run out and buy physical copies. They're all relatively cheap on Kindle, so I think I might pick them up on there at some point. But yeah, definitely not rushing to read the rest of the series, but I probably will read the rest of the series. So it's not like, what was the book I finished last week, To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods, where I just didn't care about the characters. I wouldn't say I care about the characters, but I kind of am intrigued as to where the story is going to go, especially the portrayal of Midas, because my only real experience with the story of Midas was his feature within Circe, which is a very different Midas. I think he's married to a different woman, and I don't know which is the more accurate in terms of the Greek mythology, or maybe they're just different points within the same character's life. I think there is 5 books that are currently out in this series, and the 6th and final one, to my understanding, is coming out later this year, so perhaps when that comes out I will pick the rest of these up on Kindle. But I've got monthly TBRs and leftover TBRs and backlog TBRs to be getting through before I even think about that. So this is another one ticked off my 24 in 2024 list. I would like to read the rest of the series at some point, but definitely not right now. And that's the first book of my monthly TBR done. And I was going to say, I'm 1.5 into the TBR, not even half. I've not read that much of A Sense of Freedom. Considering today is the 10th, yeah, the 10th of June, I'm not doing too badly. I'm not doing as well as I thought, because A Sense of Freedom is such a slow read, but the new Ali Hazelwood book comes out tomorrow, and I think I will be picking that one up straight away. So do with that information what you will. I think this vlog's going to end up being relatively short compared to some of the other ones I've posted recently, but I don't know if it was vlog fatigue, if it was just life fatigue, but last week was not a vlogging week. I did think about skipping it entirely, but I did film that other clip and I did finish one book, so I did want to tell you about it. So that's it for this week, I'm afraid. I will try and be more consistent with the other vlog that I start today, and we'll be filming for the next week. Either way, thank you so much for watching if you did. Sorry this isn't anything like any of the other vlogs I've made. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're reading a great book, and I'll see you next time for another bookish video. Bye!